It was around midnight when I saw it, the first sign that something was off. I had just crossed into a desolate stretch of highway, the kind of place where you don't stop unless you absolutely have to. My rig, a big Freightliner, hummed along the interstate as I settled into the familiar rhythm of the road, the lights from the dashboard casting an eerie glow on the empty road ahead. My name's Jack Turner. I've been driving trucks for nearly 15 years now, and after all that time, you get used to the monotony of long-haul trucking. You get used to being alone for hours on end, just the radio and the sound of the engine to keep you company. But tonight, it felt different. Maybe it was the storm clouds gathering on the horizon or the eerie silence that seemed to wrap itself around my truck, but something didn't sit right. I pulled off at a rest area around 1 a.m., needing to stretch my legs. The place was dark, but I've stopped at enough truck stops in my time to know that sometimes, no matter how quiet a place is, there's always someone lurking around. I kept my head down as I walked into the small convenience store to grab a coffee. The clerk, a woman in her mid-40s, barely looked up when I came in. I was about to ask her if she'd heard anything strange around here when she cut me off. "You're the trucker, right?" she asked, her voice low and careful. I nodded, unsure of where this conversation was going. "Yeah, just passing through." She took a deep breath, almost as if she was summoning the courage to say something she didn't want to. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not tonight." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? Is the storm coming through here or something?" She shook her head, her eyes darting nervously toward the door. "No, it's not the storm. Something else. Something else." I felt a chill creep down my spine, but I played it cool. "What are you talking about?" She looked around, making sure no one else was listening. "You're not the first trucker to stop here at night, and you won't be the last. But some don't make it past the morning. Do yourself a favor, get back on the road before it's too late." Her cryptic warning hung in the air like a heavy fog, but I wasn't the superstitious type. I laughed it off as I grabbed my coffee and headed back to my rig. She watched me through the window as I climbed back into the truck, and for a moment I thought I saw a flash of fear in her eyes. That was the moment it all started to feel wrong. But at that point, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. I've had my fair share of odd encounters, but nothing that would make me think twice about getting back on the road. I got comfortable, started the engine, and pulled out of the rest area, eager to continue the trip. But as I merged back onto the highway, that's when I saw it. A figure in the distance, standing at the side of the road. No vehicle, no lights, just a person standing there, motionless. It wasn't unusual to see hitchhikers or drifters in the middle of nowhere, but this one didn't look right. They were dressed in all black, but the thing that stuck out the most was the way they stood perfectly still, staring into the distance like they didn't have a care in the world. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I should have just kept going. I should have driven right past. But for some reason, I slowed down as I approached. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the feeling that something wasn't quite right and I wanted to prove myself wrong. As I passed the figure, I glanced to the side. And that's when I saw it, the face. It was pale, almost sickly white, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. The face was gone, as if this person hadn't eaten in days, and there was a faint, twisted smile on their lips. They didn't move, not an inch. Just stood there, watching me as I drove by. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were waiting for me. I pushed the accelerator, not daring to look back. I didn't see the figure again as I continued down the highway, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The longer I drove, the heavier the air seemed to get. It was like something was lurking in the shadows, just out of sight, waiting for me to make a mistake. As the hours passed, the storm I'd noticed earlier began to roll in. The wind picked up and the rain started to fall in heavy sheets, pounding against the windshield. The wipers couldn't keep up and I had to slow down, squinting into the darkness, hoping the lights from my rig would cut through the storm. That's when I noticed something strange. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance behind me. At first, I thought it was another trucker, maybe someone trying to pass. But as the vehicle got closer, I realized something was off. The headlights were too bright, almost blinding, and the truck seemed to be going too fast for the conditions. It was tailing me, not just close, but dangerously close. I glanced in the rearview mirror, but I couldn't make out any details. It was just a pair of lights, glaring through the rain. I figured it was another long-haul driver, maybe some rookie who didn't know how to handle the weather. But they didn't back off. They stayed on my tail even when I slowed down for the curves. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I tried to ignore it, but the headlights were relentless. Every time I'd glance in the mirror, It seemed like the truck was closer, like it was right behind me. Felt like I couldn't escape. I pulled over to the shoulder, hoping to give the driver a chance to pass. But when I stopped, the truck didn't go around me. Instead, it stopped as well, a few feet behind me, its headlights still blinding me. The engine revved, like the driver was waiting for something. I sat there for a moment, unsure of what to do. It was completely silent outside, except for the storm. No one else on the road. Just the sound of rain pelting the truck and the low hum of my own engine. Then, through the rain, I heard it. Faint knock. At first, I thought it was my imagination, the wind or the storm playing tricks on me. But then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Like someone was tapping on the side of the truck. I froze. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I didn't know what to think. Should I look outside? Should I just drive off? Another knock. And this time, I didn't wait. I floored the gas pedal and shot forward, my tires screeching against the wet road. The headlights behind me flared up again, chasing me in a way that felt wrong, like I was being pursued. Not just by another truck, but by something much darker. I pushed the truck as fast as it could go, but the other vehicle was keeping pace. It was too fast, too close. It was like it wanted me to feel trapped. I didn't know where the hell I was anymore. The rain blurred everything and I couldn't see any signs or landmarks. I was just speeding down a dark, endless road with no idea where it would lead. I checked the mirror again and that's when I saw it. The truck wasn't just behind me anymore, it was next to me. The headlights flickered, illuminating the driver's side of my rig. But when I looked, there was no driver. No one was in the truck at all. I could feel my chest tightening, my breath catching in my throat. My mind raced, trying to find some explanation for what I was seeing. Maybe it was some kind of illusion, the headlights playing tricks on me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The truck kept pace with mine, the empty cab now directly beside me as though it was trying to force me to look at it. But I couldn't look away. I felt like I was being pulled in by some unseen force, something darker than the storm. Then, without warning, the truck sped ahead of me, weaving in and out of the rain-soaked road like it knew exactly where it was going. I had no choice but to follow. I didn't dare slow down. We came to a curve in the road, and that's when I saw it, the bridge. It was an old, dilapidated bridge, barely visible in the storm. The wooden planks creaked and groaned under the weight of the truck, and I realized with a sickening feeling that the truck was driving right onto it, as if it was leading me to something. Something was waiting for me on the other side. I was stuck, forced to follow this unseen driver, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. And that's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Someone, or something, was walking on the bridge, slowly, deliberately, coming toward my truck. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I froze. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Something was out there in the storm and it was coming for me. The footsteps grew louder. Thump, thump, thump. I could hear them clearly now, and I could feel the weight of each step vibrating through the truck's floorboards. But they weren't coming from the road ahead of me, where the bridge should have been empty. They were coming from behind me, slow, deliberate steps that echoed like the approach of something far too large to be human. My heart was racing, my hands sweating on the wheel. I glanced in the side mirror, expecting to see the truck still close behind, but the mirror was empty. No headlights, no truck. It was gone. I turned forward, and that's when I saw it. Standing at the center of the bridge was a figure, drenched in rain, its silhouette barely visible through the downpour. It was tall, too tall, and its body was hunched unnaturally. The figure was staring right at me, its head tilting slightly as if it was inspecting me. My gut twisted with a primal fear, and I knew, deep down, that I had to get out of there. I slammed my foot on the gas and tried to speed up, but the truck felt as though it were moving through mud. It wasn't responding the way it should have. It was like something was pulling me toward the figure, dragging me into the nightmarish scene unfolding in front of me. The figure took a step forward, then another. Its movements were jerky, inhuman, like it was forcing its limbs to obey. I could see the outline of a face, twisted and contorted, the skin pale and stretched thin over what could only be described as bones. It had no eyes. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop just inches from the figure, which didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge my presence. It just stood there, staring into the truck, its head twitching from side to side as if it was deciding whether or not to come closer. In that moment, the world seemed to freeze. The rain, the wind, the engine, all of it disappeared, leaving only the rhythmic thumping of my heart. And then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, I heard it. A voice that wasn't coming from anywhere, but somehow felt like it was coming from inside my mind. Turn around. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, suffocating. But that voice, it wasn't asking. It was commanding, and deep down, I knew I had no choice but to listen. With trembling hands, I turned the wheel, my foot lifting off the brake. The truck jerked into motion again, the engine growling as if it too resisted. My eyes were glued to the figure in the rearview mirror as I pulled away, its form remaining eerily still in the center of the bridge. And then, nothing. The footsteps stopped. The figure vanished. I didn't dare look back. I floored the accelerator, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I sped down the road, not knowing where I was going, but needing to get as far away from that bridge as I could. But something inside me told me that whatever it was still watching me. Following me, waiting for the right moment. The rain began to let up and slowly the storm cleared. The darkness seemed to lift and the road in front of me opened up into a stretch of emptiness that felt almost too calm. But then I saw it. A sign. A worn, faded sign on the side of the road. I could barely make it out in the dim light, but the words were clear. Welcome to Redstone. I didn't know what Redstone was, but I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up again. There was something off about this place, something about the air itself that made it feel wrong. I was still trying to process everything that had happened, the figure on the bridge, the voice in my head when the headlights appeared again, this time in front of me. It was the same truck. The same empty truck with no driver. I slammed on the brakes, but this time it didn't tail me. It just stopped in front of me, blocking the road. No noise. No movement. Just the bright headlights, blinding and cold. I tried to reverse, but the truck behind me reappeared, trapping me between them. Then, the engine of my rig sputtered. The truck was dead. Panic flooded my chest, and I tried to restart it, turning the key over and over. But the engine didn't respond. And then, through the windshield, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The figure, the one from the bridge, was standing in front of the truck. Only now, it was closer, so close I could see the outline of its face in the dim light. The twisted grin, the pale, stretched skin. And it was smiling. I knew then that it wasn't going to let me go. It wasn't going to let me leave. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed in that moment, staring at the figure. The truck's engine was still dead, the air around me thick with the sense that something terrible was about to unfold. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, but I could feel its presence, like a weight on my chest, pressing down, suffocating me. I glanced around, desperate for any escape, but the rain had stopped, leaving everything eerily still. The road behind me was a blur, the headlights of the phantom truck now glowing dimly as if they, too, were waiting. And then, in the silence, I heard it again. Turn around. The voice was sharper this time, demanding. The words echoed in my mind like a command I couldn't disobey, like an ancient law I was bound by. The figure took a step forward, and I could see it more clearly now, the hollow eye sockets, the gaunt features, the ragged clothes that hung off its frame like they were stitched together by something cruel. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I had to get out of there. I had to leave, or I wouldn't make it through the night. I grabbed the gear shift, praying to God the truck would start. But before I could do anything, the voice came again, this time louder and more insistent. You're not leaving. The words weren't a suggestion anymore, they were a statement of fact. A sudden coldness washed over me, and I looked up to see the figure moving, no longer slow and deliberate, but fast, impossibly fast. It closed the distance between us in a heartbeat. Before I could react, its skeletal hand shot out, grabbing hold of the side mirror, its fingers long and gnarled, like claws. I tried to pull away, but it held on with unnatural strength, its grip unyielding. No one leaves, the voice whispered again, right behind my ear, so close I could feel the icy breath on my skin. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I slammed my foot on the accelerator again, but nothing happened. The truck remained still, as though the road had been swallowed by some unseen force, holding us captive in the middle of nowhere. The figure was right next to my window now, its face inches from mine. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. The figure was gone. The truck was still. The night, however, felt much darker than before. I looked around, heart pounding, sweat running down my back. There was no sign of it. The truck in front of me gone. The phantom truck behind me also disappeared. For a moment, I dared to believe I had imagined it all. Maybe I had hit some kind of breaking point. But something told me that wasn't true. The terror I felt was too real, too sharp to ignore. The engine sputtered again, but this time it roared to life with a deep growl like it was alive. The truck jerked forward on its own and I barely had time to react. The steering wheel turned without my control, sending me into a sharp curve. I tried to fight it to wrestle the wheel back into my control, but the truck veered to the side, pulling me off the road. The tires screeched against the gravel as the truck careened into the darkness. I slammed into a ditch. The world around me spun. For a long moment, everything was silent. My head was spinning and the truck had come to a stop, half buried in the dirt. I sat there, my hands still gripping the wheel, heart hammering in my chest. I thought I might have blacked out, but when I looked up, there was a figure standing outside my windshield. It wasn't the thing from before. This one was different. This one was human, or at least it looked human. A man, tall and gaunt, with a dark suit, a wide-brimmed hat, and no eyes. He stood there, unmoving, like a shadow cast by something much darker. I opened my door, trying to move to get out of the truck, but it wouldn't open. The door wouldn't budge. I shoved against it, panic rising in my throat, but it was as if the truck itself had sealed me inside. The man reached out, his fingers hovering just inches from the glass. He never spoke, but I could feel his presence, his intention. It was then that I understood. The highway, this place, this road, it wasn't meant for me. It wasn't meant for anyone. It was a trap, and I had fallen right into it. I felt my breath catch in my throat, and suddenly the air felt thick, suffocating. The truck began to hum again, and this time it wasn't the engine. It was the entire road beneath me, as if the highway itself was alive, pulling me deeper into something dark and endless. I knew then that I wasn't going to make it out. And that's when the voice spoke again, this time in my ear, clearer than ever. You should have listened. The man outside the windshield didn't move, but the air around me grew thick, like it was pressing in from all sides. The truck, no longer in my control, began to inch forward again, its wheels grinding against the gravel, and I could feel the pressure building in my chest, the crushing weight of whatever force was pulling me in. The world outside the truck seemed to warp, the landscape twisting, like I was driving through some kind of nightmare. But the man with the dark suit, the wide-brimmed hat, and the hollow eyes was still standing there. He hadn't blinked. He hadn't moved a muscle. But somehow I knew he was watching me. I could feel it. I slammed my fists against the dashboard, fighting the panic rising in my throat. I had to get out. I had to move. But my legs wouldn't cooperate, and the door, still jammed shut, wouldn't open no matter how hard I pulled. The truck continued to inch forward like it was gliding on some unseen track. The road stretched ahead, a twisted, endless path that seemed to lead nowhere but into the heart of the darkness. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity. Then, as the truck began to move faster, I saw something that made my blood run cold, a dark shape, standing in the distance. At first, I thought it was just a shadow, a trick of the night. But as I got closer, I realized what it was. Another figure. This one was taller than the others, towering over the road. Its body was hunched, its limbs too long, its shape distorted in a way that defied human anatomy. It had no face, just an empty, gaping hole where its head should have been. And behind it, countless more figures. Endless, faceless shapes standing motionless along the sides of the road. They were waiting for me, watching. I felt like I was surrounded by a sea of them. Eyes that weren't eyes, faces that weren't faces, just empty, dark holes staring into my soul. I could hear the faintest whispers, a language I couldn't understand. The figures on the road didn't move, didn't speak, but they were there all around me. And then one of them, the one at the front, took a step forward. It moved with a fluid grace that was unnatural, almost as if it were gliding. It came toward the truck with a speed that shouldn't have been possible, and before I could react, its hand shot through the windshield. I felt its fingers wrap around my throat, cold and clammy, tightening with a strength that felt like iron. The figure's face, or rather its empty, hollow face, was right in front of me now. It leaned in close, and for the first time, I felt the weight of its gaze. The emptiness, the darkness, the abyss that looked back at me from within that void. And then it spoke. "You've been chosen." Its voice wasn't like any human voice I'd ever heard. It was a chorus of whispers, 1,000 voices speaking in unison, echoing in my skull. And in that moment, I knew there was no escape, no getting out of this. The truck came to a sudden halt, jerking me forward in my seat, the force of the stop nearly knocking me out. I gasped for air, the icy grip around my throat still tightening. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The world was fading to black. I could feel my life slipping away, my consciousness leaving me. And then, just as everything went dark, the voice returned. "This is the price of passing through. I woke up in the driver's seat, drenched in sweat. The truck was still there, still running, the engine humming quietly beneath me. My hands were gripping the wheel, my knuckles pale from the force. I looked around. The road was empty. The figures were gone. The man in the dark suit, gone. But it wasn't over. I could feel it in the air, the weight of something watching me, the feeling of something following me. I don't know what happened, or if I was asleep or awake when it happened, but I know one thing for sure. The road is not just a road, and the things that follow you on it, they don't stop. They don't let go. The price of passing through is high, and there's always a cost. This was the end of my journey. I haven't been on the road since, but I know they're still out there, waiting. If you ever find yourself on a desolate highway, alone at night, and you see the signs, don't stop. Because you never know who or what is waiting for you. I didn't think I'd ever have to speak of it again. I thought it would fade from my mind as quickly as a bad dream. But I was wrong. The road is still out there, and it doesn't forget. It calls. The truth is, I can't even drive anymore. I haven't been behind the wheel of a rig since that night. I couldn't bring myself to even look at another truck. But no matter how far I run, the memories follow me. The thing that waits on the road, it stays with you. It marks you. And I have come to realize that no matter how far you drive, the road always has a way of pulling you back. A few weeks after I quit trucking, I found myself back on the outskirts of Redstone, though I didn't know how I got there. One minute I was heading to a diner in the next town over, and the next I was on that stretch of highway. It was as if I had no control over where I was going. The wheel was turning on its own, the engine roaring like it had a life of its own. I tried to stop. I tried to turn around. But no matter what I did, the road led me straight back to that same place. The rest stop, the bridge, the figure with the hat, the place that had claimed me. I could see it all over again, just as clearly as the first time. Like I was never meant to leave. Like I was bound to the road forever. This time, though, something was different. Something had changed. I had stopped fighting it. Maybe I was just tired of running. Or maybe, deep down, I knew I was never going to escape it. I pulled into that same rest area where I had met the woman who warned me. The woman I never saw again. The place looked the same. The quiet. The dark. And yet it felt alive, as though it was waiting for me to return. I walked into the convenience store again, my legs stiff, but this time I didn't feel the chill of fear I once had. Instead, there was a strange peace in the air. The clerk behind the counter was the same woman I had met that night, the one who had warned me. But there was no shock, no fear in her eyes. When she saw me, she just gave me a small nod. "You're back," she said simply, as if she had been waiting. I couldn't help it, I replied, my voice hollow. I wasn't sure who I was talking to anymore. The trucker I had been? The man I'd become? Or something else entirely? The woman didn't speak. She didn't need to. We both knew what this place was. What the road had done to me. She had seen it before. Just like everyone else who had stopped here. Just like the others who had chosen to follow the road's call, to give in to it. And in that moment, I understood. The road wasn't just a path, it was a test. A test of who you were, of what you were willing to sacrifice. Every trucker who passed through Redstone, every soul who stepped onto that highway, had been chosen for something far darker than they could comprehend. But now it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the others, the ones who would follow after me. The ones who wouldn't heed the warnings, who wouldn't listen when they were told that the road wasn't just a road, it was a place where things waited. I stepped back outside into the still, dark night, and I felt the air close in around me. I knew then that I had no way of leaving this place. The road would keep calling me back, and every time I tried to escape, it would drag me back in, deeper, further, until there was nothing left of me but a ghost, just another soul lost to the highway. As I looked up, I saw a truck pulling into the rest area. I didn't have to look twice. I knew what was waiting inside that rig. And I knew that soon enough, someone else would hear the call. I watched as the truck pulled in, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a knife. The engine idled softly, and the sound of the rain starting again in the distance was the only thing that filled the air. The figure behind the wheel, just another driver, another soul passing through, oblivious to the horrors that awaited. Just like I had been. I didn't want to watch it. I didn't want to see that same fear in another person's eyes, the same confusion, the same desperate hope that they could escape. But I knew there was no avoiding it. The road had already claimed me. It had already sealed my fate. And soon it would claim them too. I turned away from the truck, not wanting to see anymore. I couldn't be the one to warn them. I had tried before. I had given that woman my warning, and it didn't matter. She had known what was coming, and still she stayed. We all stayed. The road doesn't give you a choice. It doesn't let you leave. Not unless it wants you to. I wandered away from the rest area, my feet heavy as if weighed down by invisible chains. I could still hear the truck driver's footsteps, still feel the pull of the highway beneath me, the road stretching endlessly ahead, always beckoning. In the distance, I saw the silhouette of the bridge, just a shadow in the rain. I didn't want to go there, couldn't, but the pull was undeniable. Something deep inside me told me that it was my turn now, that the price I had paid wasn't enough, and the road would never let me be free. I reached the edge of the road, my heart pounding, as the familiar darkness crept in. It felt like I was standing at the threshold of some ancient doorway, a place where time had no meaning, and the road was the only thing that mattered. I heard the faint sound of a truck engine in the distance, and I knew it was coming for me, just as it had come for all the others. And then, through the rain, I saw the figure again. Not the man in the dark suit, not the faceless creatures, but the first one, the one I had seen on the bridge all those months ago. It was standing at the side of the road, waiting for me. Its hollow eyes were locked on mine, and in its gaze, I saw something that made my blood freeze. It wasn't just waiting for me. It was calling me. It was pulling me toward it like the road itself was a living thing that wanted me to come closer, to give in. I felt myself taking a step forward. One step, then another. I couldn't stop myself. The figure's twisted grin stretched wider, and I knew then that the road was never meant to be escaped. It wasn't a journey you could leave. It was a trap. And once you were on it, there was no going back. As the truck approached, headlights blinding me, I reached out. And just as the truck passed by, the figure stepped into the road. But it wasn't just standing anymore. It was moving toward me, its shape flickering as if it was more shadow than flesh. I was too late. I felt its cold, bony hand grasp my arm, pulling me toward the center of the highway, toward the endless stretch of road that awaited. The truck's engine roared, and as I turned to look back one last time, I saw nothing but the highway stretching endlessly into the night. The road was never meant to be left behind. And as I crossed the threshold into the dark unknown, I knew the truth. I was never meant to escape.